I wasn't invited to the dinner. Let's start there. She told me it was executives only, which made sense. Kalisa had just been promoted to VP of branding, and I was, well, the high school art teacher who smelled like dry erase markers and disappointment most days. So I stayed home like the supportive husband I am. I even did the dishes, folded the laundry, fed her cat. Not our cat, hers. She made that distinction early in the marriage. I should have paid more attention to things like that. It was nearly midnight when I realized she'd left her work iPad charging in the bedroom. Normally, I'd never touch it, but it kept dinging, over and over. Something in me, some fragile thread inside my chest, snapped. I checked it, just once. What I saw? It wasn't the messages that hurt the most. It was the live location. She had shared it earlier with her assistant, and it was still active. That's how I knew the dinner had ended hours ago. That's how I knew she wasn't at the Hilton ballroom anymore. She was at a rooftop bar called Glass House. I shouldn't have gone. I know I shouldn't have gone. But you don't just sit at home brushing your dog's fur while your wife's GPS that stops moving at a bar that's not on the company invite. I drove downtown. Didn't even put on shoes. Just socks and slides. Parked 2 blocks away because I couldn't stomach pulling up right in front of the scene of my potential heartbreak. I told the hostess I was there to surprise my wife. She didn't question it. The elevator opened on the rooftop. Music, laughter, expensive laughter, the kind you fake in front of clients. And then, there she was. Kalisa, my wife, my whole world, in a backless black dress I'd never seen before, laughing like a teenager while a man half a head taller than me leaned down and kissed her, right in front of a dozen people, right on her mouth. I didn't shout. I didn't cry. I walked straight up, heart hammering, and I said, "You just destroyed our marriage." She turned toward me. Slowly, her mouth still glistened with the guy's cologne. Her teeth, her perfect white teeth, had a trace of red lipstick smeared across them. Not her lipstick. And she smiled. "Brennan," she said, cool as the martini in her hand, "you're mistaken." Just like that. "You're mistaken." That's when everyone turned to look at me. Like I was the one causing a scene. Like I was the uninvited embarrassment. And I stood there, paralyzed. But I wasn't mistaken. Because 2 hours earlier, someone had sent me a video. A shaky, badly lit clip taken from behind a wine rack, and what it showed would prove everything. I just hadn't opened it yet. I left the rooftop without saying another word. I couldn't. My throat was a locked door, and behind it was every scream I swallowed for years. I walked like a ghost through the lobby, through the parking lot, through the night. I don't even remember unlocking the car. My hands were trembling so badly. I dropped my phone twice before I managed to sit down. But when I did, I opened that message. No sender name, just a number I didn't recognize and the words, "Thought you should know." Attached was a video file, barely 10 seconds long. My fingers hovered over it. I hesitated, thinking maybe this was all too much. Maybe I was about to see something I couldn't unsee. But then I remembered her smile. Her lipstick. The man's hand on the small of her back. "You're mistaken." No, I had to see it. I pressed play. The video was grainy, shaky, taken from behind a wine rack, just like I suspected. It showed a dimly lit private lounge, not the rooftop, not the main ballroom, but some tucked-away side room with a velvet couch and champagne flutes on the floor. At first, it was quiet. Then she appeared. Kalisa. And the man. He pulled her onto his lap. She didn't resist. In fact, she leaned in like it was routine, like this was just another Tuesday for them. They laughed. Whispered. His hands were everywhere. And then she said it. Clear as day. "He has no idea. He still thinks I'm working late with Celia." They both laughed. I felt physically ill. The video ended before it got worse. But it didn't need to continue. 10 seconds were enough. 10 seconds collapsed our 6-year marriage. 10 seconds killed every moment I ever believed we were happy. My stomach turned. I had to open the door just to throw up into the street. My hands were still shaking as I sat there, head pounding, world spinning. I don't remember how long I stayed parked. Hours maybe. Long enough for my phone to die. Long enough for the numbness to wear off and the rage to creep in. When I finally walked through the front door of our apartment, the lights were off. The air was heavy with the scent of her perfume. Her heels were by the couch, neatly placed, like nothing was wrong. I sat on the edge of the coffee table, staring at the front door, waiting. At 2:13 a.m., she came in. She looked surprised to see me, but only for a moment. Then she did what she always did when she got caught in something she couldn't immediately explain. She smiled and tried to control the narrative. "Brennan," she said softly, like I was a wounded child. "I was going to call. It went late. There was. I saw it." She blinked. "Saw what?" "The video. The lounge. Him. You." The smile didn't vanish. It shattered. Her mouth froze half open. Her keys slipped from her hand and hit the floor with a pathetic jingle. "You weren't supposed to," she began, but the words died before they reached me. I stood up. She took a step back, and I said it again, louder this time. "You weren't supposed to what, Kalisa? Get caught? Have proof? Let me know I'm not crazy?" She tried to speak again, but I shook my head. I didn't want answers anymore. I wanted to disappear. But before I could, I saw her phone light up in her purse. A new message. From that same number. She wasn't just cheating on me. She was being watched. I didn't reach for her phone right away. I just stared at it buzzing inside her purse like it was some kind of live grenade, and I was too stunned to move. Kalisa didn't seem to notice. Or maybe she did, but at that point, she was more focused on damage control. She kept repeating, "This isn't what you think," like those words could magically rewind time and erase the lipstick from her teeth, the video from my inbox, the betrayal that had already taken root in my bones. But I wasn't listening to her anymore. I couldn't. Instead, I picked up her phone and saw the preview on the lock screen. "Unknown number. He knows. You better pray that's all he knows." I looked at her. Her face went white. "You know that number too, don't you?" I asked. "You're not just afraid of what I saw. You're afraid of them." She grabbed for the phone, but I pulled it away. "Who is it?" I demanded. She hesitated. Then the performance fell apart completely. It's complicated," she muttered. "No," I said. "Complicated is forgetting an anniversary. Complicated is one fight too many. This is something else." She sat down, suddenly exhausted, like all the energy she used to juggle her lies had just burned out. Her voice dropped to almost a whisper. "I don't know who they are. They started messaging me 2 weeks ago. At first, I thought it was just spam. Then they started describing things. Where I was. Who I was with. Exact conversations. They sent me screenshots of my own texts. Stuff I deleted." I felt a chill crawl down my spine. "So what? Someone's spying on you? On us?" She nodded slowly. "They know about him. And now they know about you knowing." I ran a hand down my face, trying to process. This was spiraling into something bigger than just infidelity. It was something calculated, targeted, observed. I thought if I kept quiet, if I played along, they'd stop, she said. But now they're threatening me. I didn't know what to do. "You could have told me," I snapped. "You could have come to me the moment this started." She looked up at me with eyes full of some twisted cocktail of guilt and fear. "Would you have believed me, Brennan?" And honestly, no, I wouldn't have. Not after what I saw. But the problem now wasn't just betrayal. It was that someone else was involved. Someone who didn't want just to expose her. Someone who wanted her terrified. And now, they'd pulled me into it too. The phone buzzed again. Same number. New message. "Now it's your turn, Brennan. Let's see how loyal you are under pressure." I didn't understand what that meant yet. But by the next morning, I would. Because they sent me something I wasn't supposed to have. A copy of my own private emails, including ones I had deleted from a personal, offline account years ago, and one attachment with a subject line I'll never forget. "Do you want to know the real reason she married you?" I didn't sleep that night. I just sat there at the kitchen table, staring at Kalissa's phone while mine lay dead on the counter, still drained from the rooftop disaster. She eventually went to the bedroom, muttering something about needing to lie down. I didn't follow. I didn't argue. I couldn't even look at her anymore. I was too focused on the message. That single email, waiting in my inbox like a bomb with the pin already pulled. Subject: "Do you want to know the real reason she married you?" There was no sender. No address. Just an empty name field and that sentence, sitting there like a whisper in a dark room. I stared at it for 10 minutes before I clicked it open. Part of me didn't want to know. Part of me already did. But the rest of me, the wrecked, bleeding, desperate part, needed to see it written down to believe this was really my life. Inside the email was just a paragraph. No greeting. No signature. She told him you were a placeholder. A stable name. Someone whose boring routine and safe career could fund her ambitions while she figured out what she really wanted. She married you because you were never a risk. Just a resource. Her actual feelings? Read the file below. There was an attachment, PDF, titled, Calissa Confessions, Transcript, TXT. I downloaded it with shaky fingers, half expecting it to be fake. Maybe AI generated. Maybe a scam. But the moment I opened it, I knew it was real. It was a conversation, transcribed line by line, with timestamps. And her name, Calissa. No, he's not abusive. He's just there, you know? Like a couch you never liked, but keep because it fills the space. Unknown male. So why marry him? Calissa. Because I needed a foundation. Brennan's safe. Predictable. He doesn't challenge me. And he worships me, which is convenient. Unknown male. But you don't love him? Calissa. No, not like that. I don't think I ever have. I dropped the laptop. I actually dropped it. It hit the floor with a dull thud, and I didn't even care. I couldn't breathe. I wanted to scream, or laugh, or disappear entirely. My ears were ringing. My eyes burned. My heart wasn't just breaking, it was rejecting reality. 6 years. 6 years of cooking her favorite meals, remembering her dentist appointments, buying backup pairs of her favorite eyeliner when it went out of stock, and folding her laundry the way she liked, even though she never once thanked me for it. I was a couch. A placeholder. Something convenient until she figured out who she really wanted to be. And the worst part? I believed her when she said she married me because I made her feel safe. I believed every compliment, every thank you, every I love you, she whispered half asleep. I thought those were real. But they were lines. Not from a play, but from a script she was improvising as she went. One that someone else had now exposed. Then I noticed something strange in the transcript. A second voice. Another name. Santiago. It wasn't the man from the rooftop. It was someone else entirely. And his questions were leading, deliberate. He wasn't just flirting. He was interviewing her, guiding her, recording her. And suddenly, the pieces began falling into place. This wasn't just a lover's betrayal. This was a setup. Someone had been collecting her secrets, filming her conversations, leaking them in pieces like a sick game. And I was just the final player they needed to destroy her completely. Or maybe to destroy us both. Because 5 minutes later, another message hit her phone. From the same number. If you don't leave her by tomorrow, Brennan, we will. I didn't sleep. Again. I stayed at the kitchen table, fingers clenched together, waiting for the sun to rise like it might somehow burn the truth away. I couldn't get her words out of my head. Her voice from the transcript, so casual, so cold. Calling me convenient. Comparing me to furniture. Like I wasn't a person who built his life around her. Like I was just something she sat on while her real life passed by. And then there was Santiago. That name, it stuck with me. It clawed at something in the back of my mind. I'd never heard her mention him. Never seen the name pop up on her calls or messages. But the way he spoke in that transcript, how smooth, how in control he sounded. It wasn't a casual chat. It was an interrogation, dressed up like a flirtation. Whoever Santiago was, he wasn't just a fling. He was collecting something. Data. Confessions. Weapons. At 6:42 a.m., I finally broke. I got up, went to the bedroom, and stood in the doorway watching her sleep. She looked peaceful. Not guilty. Not terrified. Just comfortably wrapped in the wreckage she created. For a second, I thought about shaking her awake, forcing her to explain every detail, every lie. But what was the point? She'd just lie again. Instead, I turned and did something I hadn't done in years. I logged into my old work laptop. It was buried in the back of our closet, half dead, dusty, barely holding on. But it had something no other device in the house did. An archive of old consulting files from before I went full-time teaching. Back when I worked on digital security cases for a few startups and tech firms on the side. And that's when it hit me. Santiago wasn't just a name. It was a tag. A digital alias I'd seen in a leaked metadata breach report I once worked on, buried under layers of encrypted voice files. Santiago was known for extracting confessions under the guise of emotional intimacy. A social engineer. A manipulator. He targeted high-profile individuals, especially those in corporate marketing and legal sectors, and used personal recordings as blackmail, leverage, or worse. It had to be him. Someone had activated Santiago again, and now he was in my house, figuratively speaking, poisoning my marriage from the inside. But here was the sick part. It wasn't just Calissa he was after. It wasn't even about the affair anymore. It was about control. Because if he had her secrets, and he had mine, then what was he waiting for? That's when her phone buzzed again. Another message. This time, no cryptic threat. No passive-aggressive taunt. Just a video file. I hesitated, but opened it. It showed me, from 2 nights ago, standing in front of our apartment complex, on the phone with my brother. The camera angle was high, across the street, like it came from a drone or a building's mounted cam. It even captured my voice clearly enough to make out what I said. I think she's hiding something. I don't trust her lately. The clip ended there, and then a new message followed. You're not just the victim, Brennan. You're the story, and you're going to help us finish it. My heart slammed into my ribs. The air in the kitchen felt thinner, like I was being squeezed from the inside out. This wasn't surveillance anymore. This was a script. And Santiago, he was directing it. I wasn't just caught in Calissa's lies. I was being cast in someone else's narrative. And the next scene? I had no idea what it was. But I was done waiting to find out. By sunrise, I wasn't Brennan the husband anymore. I wasn't the quiet guy in the background, the dependable one. The one who ignored the late nights and the emotional distance and the lipstick stains on coffee cups that weren't hers. I wasn't even the betrayed man. I was something else now. Something they made me into. And I could feel it growing in my chest like a second heartbeat, rage mixed with clarity. Santiago had made a mistake. A big one. He thought I'd play along, that I'd break down and run or spiral into silence. He didn't know me as well as he thought. I'd lived a whole life being underestimated. Teachers, family, Calisa, they all assumed I'd just accept what I was handed, take the safer route, apologize even when I wasn't wrong. And for years, I did. Until now. I knew what I had to do. But first, I had to make Calisa talk. I walked into the bedroom. She was awake, scrolling through her phone like it was any other Thursday morning. For someone who'd been exposed, recorded, and cornered, she looked normal. It made me sick. Who else knows? I asked without preamble. She blinked. About what? Don't, I said, voice flat. Don't play innocent. I'm not in the mood. She sat up, the blanket falling off her shoulders. I don't know who's behind this, Brennan. I swear. I only talked to Santiago once. I thought he was a recruiter. He said he worked with private clients and offered media exposure. I didn't know he was recording. I didn't know. I cut her off. He sent me footage of me. From days ago. Private conversations. He has access to both our lives. That's when her expression cracked for the first time in days. Not just guilt. Real fear. She whispered. He told me if I ever exposed him, he'd ruin both of us. I narrowed my eyes. Why would he ruin me? I didn't do anything. She hesitated. And that hesitation told me everything. There's more, I said. She nodded slowly. Last year, I used your credentials. My stomach dropped. What credentials? She looked down. Your private work server. That old cybersecurity job you quit before teaching full-time? I used your access to pull internal brand data for a presentation. I thought no one would trace it. I just needed the numbers. But Santiago said it wasn't a coincidence. That's why he found me. He said he'd been watching me ever since. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. She'd used my old corporate clearance, something I never even mentioned to most people, just to impress a room full of executives. She had no idea what back doors she might have opened or who came crawling through them. And now I was the one being watched like I was the threat. It wasn't just betrayal anymore. It was digital treason. And the worst part? Santiago didn't just want leverage. He wanted a story. Something dramatic. Something that would destroy reputations in every direction. A wife who used her husband to commit a breach. A husband who found out and retaliated. A meltdown. A scandal. A public collapse. That's what this was. A script. And we were just his unwilling actors. That's when I made a decision I never imagined myself making. I told her to get dressed. Where are we going? She asked, voice shaking. To the one place Santiago doesn't control, I said. She narrowed her eyes. And where's that? I looked her dead in the eye. My mother's basement. Middle of nowhere. No signal, no Wi-Fi, no hidden mics, and no one who'll believe we're important enough to spy on. She looked like she wanted to argue. She didn't. We packed light. No phones. No laptops. Just printed documents, burner cash, and the clothes on our backs. We were going off-grid. Because I finally understood something Santiago hadn't accounted for. You can manipulate people who don't know the truth. But once you show a man everything, once you break him open and pour the ugly truth in, you better hope he doesn't survive it. Because if he does, he'll be dangerous. We drove in silence for 3 hours straight. No music, no podcasts, just the low hum of tires on asphalt and the occasional shifting of Kalisa beside me. She kept glancing out the window like she was afraid Santiago had eyes in the trees. I didn't say anything to her. Not because I was angry. I was well past that, but because I didn't know which version of her I was sitting next to. The woman who shared my bed for 6 years, or the woman who casually called me a placeholder to a stranger with a recording device. By the time we reached the dirt road leading to my mother's place, the sun was already leaning west. I parked behind the barn, far from the main road. We left everything in the car except one duffel bag she insisted on carrying herself. That, in hindsight, should have been the clue. Mom wasn't home. She rarely was anymore. Spent most of her time in town volunteering or playing canasta with neighbors who still called the internet the devil's megaphone. Which made her house perfect. No routers. No smart devices. Just thick walls, old carpet, and the kind of stillness that made every whisper feel like a scream. I sat up in the den. She paced the hallway. Then, when she thought I wasn't looking, she slipped into the guest room and locked the door. I gave her an hour. I didn't knock. I didn't ask if she was okay. I waited. And when I heard the soft zip of the duffel bag open, I crept down the hall barefoot, heart pounding in my ears. I didn't want to be the guy who spied on his wife. But then again, she wasn't really a wife anymore. Not in the way that counted. The door had a thin gap at the bottom, enough to see her silhouette kneeling by the bed. She pulled something from the lining of her bag, a folder, black, unmarked, with a faint red crease down the spine like it had been folded wrong at some point and smoothed out. She opened it and started reading. Quietly, slowly, like the pages were instructions to defuse a bomb. I backed away before she saw me. Waited until she left the room to use the bathroom. Then I slipped inside. The folder was still on the bed. Inside were printed emails, screenshots, transcripts. Not from Santiago. From her. Messages to someone named Marcus. Months of communication. All business at first, about digital branding strategies, logo design, the rollout of some internal campaign. But then the tone changed. Kalisa, I need this to work. He can't find out until I have full access. Marcus, we're almost there. Just a few more data pulls, and you'll be free of him. We both will. Kalisa, he's so trusting. It's pathetic. I almost feel bad. Marcus, don't. You're doing this for a reason. For us. I froze. This wasn't just cheating. This was orchestration. She had used my name, my credentials, my blind loyalty, all to access restricted corporate data and funnel it to some man named Marcus. Santiago wasn't the main threat. He was a side effect. A predator who noticed a wound. She had opened the wound. Suddenly, I wasn't just a betrayed husband or an accidental accomplice. I was the fall guy. The digital trail would lead back to me. The IP logs. The credential stamps. The firewall access. My old job's buried systems still carried my name, my clearance. And now, someone else had used it to punch holes in a billion-dollar corporation's security and frame me for it. My head was spinning. I stumbled out of the guest room just as she stepped out of the bathroom, drying her hands with a towel. She saw my face. She knew. You read it, she said quietly. I nodded. You were never afraid of Santiago, were you? She didn't answer, but her silence said everything. Then I asked the only question that still mattered. Who is Marcus? She hesitated, then whispered, he's the man I should have married. I didn't scream. I didn't hit anything. I just stood there as the weight of it all collapsed on top of me. The lies. The manipulation. The years she spent plotting, smiling, pretending. And then she added, almost as an afterthought, but I don't think he's who he said he was either. That's when the lights in the house flickered. Once. Twice. And then went dark. We weren't alone anymore. The power didn't just flicker, it vanished. The house went so quiet I could hear my own breath hitching. Kalisa stood frozen in the hallway, eyes wide, hands trembling slightly at her sides. Somewhere outside, a dog barked once, then stopped. I don't know what I expected, maybe a crash, a voice, a warning. But there was just stillness. I grabbed the emergency flashlight from the kitchen drawer and swept its narrow beam through the living room. No movement. No sound. Kalisa stepped in behind me, whispering, "Do you think it's him?" I didn't answer. I didn't need to. I walked straight to the breaker box. Everything was off. Every switch. But not tripped. Just flipped. Deliberately. Like someone had been inside. But there were no broken locks, no open windows, just us. And then her phone, which she had tucked in her jacket since the drive, buzzed once with a soft vibration. No screen lit up. It was off, fully powered down. I checked it myself, but it vibrated again. Then again. Something was wrong. That's when I remembered the old landline in my mom's sewing room. A rotary, completely analog. I bolted for it like it was my last hope and dialed one number I knew I could still trust. My older brother, Eli. He lived 2 hours away, ex-military, paranoid about everything digital, and the only person who ever believed me when I said something didn't feel right. He picked up on the second ring. I didn't even say hello. I just said, "I need you here. Now." To his credit, Eli didn't ask why. He just said, "I'm leaving," and hung up. The next 3 hours were the longest of my life. I didn't speak to Kalisa. She didn't ask me to. She knew. The house stayed dark, heavy with the feeling that at any moment something, or someone, might show up. But no one came. And then headlights swept through the window. Eli. He came armed, of course. Not with weapons, but with knowledge. He brought a Faraday bag, a jammer, burner phones, and an external hard drive full of tracing software. We powered up only one laptop, completely offline, and loaded the contents of the folder Kalisa had been hiding. Eli took one look at the name Marcus and started laughing. Not the funny kind. The "holy crap, this is worse than I thought" kind. He turned the screen to us and pulled up an archive case file. Marcus Langley, a digital ghost, former federal contractor turned corporate saboteur. He specialized in staging internal breaches, then swooping in as a solution provider to the very companies he helped compromise. He didn't want Kalisa. He used her. She wasn't the mastermind. She was the bait. Santiago? Just another freelance weapon in his arsenal, someone he hired to put pressure on targets, then disappear. But something had gone sideways. Santiago kept the files and started playing his own game. And me? I was the only part Marcus hadn't counted on. The safe, predictable husband who wasn't supposed to fight back. So we did. With Eli's help, we compiled every message, every screenshot, every video. We handed it all to a contact of his who specialized in corporate forensic recovery. Within days, Santiago's identity was traced and reported. Kalisa gave a full confession to the legal team. Marcus's network got exposed in a quiet sweep of sealed indictments. No news stories. No drama. Just quiet, precise justice. As part of the settlement, my name was cleared. Fully. Publicly. Kalisa, in exchange for avoiding prosecution, agreed to testify against Marcus in a closed hearing. We signed the divorce papers in silence 2 weeks later. No yelling. No fights. Just a mutual agreement that we were over. That we had never really begun, if I'm being honest. I moved out of the city. Got a teaching job at a small art school upstate. Simple life. Quiet students. No cameras. No corporate dinners. Just peace. Sometimes, I still wake up thinking I'm in that rooftop bar, watching her kiss him while my heart falls out of my chest. But it fades. The dreams don't hurt like they used to. They don't own me anymore. Last week, I started seeing someone new. Her name is Marnie. She's not flashy. Doesn't even have social media. But when she looks at me, it's not through me. It's at me. And when I talk, she listens like my words matter. No secrets. No games. Just presence. And I'm not a placeholder anymore. I'm finally home.